This video will show an overview of the Learning Sciences for Computing Education chapter. I'm Lauren Margelow, and my co-authors were Brian Dorn and Kristen Searley. The chapter has 4 major sections: Introduction and History of Learning Sciences in the Context of Computing Education, Theoretical Foundations, Methodology, and Stages of Learning Sciences projects, with examples from computing education research projects. We provide a brief 2-page history of the development of learning sciences in computing education, talking about how they grew in parallel, stemming from the cognitive sciences. Then we talk about how they have relatively limited integration despite overlapping goals, and provide some examples of projects that include both. In the theory section, we talk about 4 major types of theories and prominent examples of each. For a theory of cognition, we talk about constructivism. For a theory of community, we talk about cognitive apprenticeship. For socio-cultural and historical contexts, we use sociocultural theory. And for a theory of motivation, we talk about expectancy value theory. In the methodology section, we focus on how to apply design-based research to computing education research. We especially focus on how to contrast design-based research with scholarship of teaching and learning and action research. In the final section, we talk about the 4 stages of learning sciences projects, starting with conducting studies to better understand learners and their context, designing initial interventions, iterating on those interventions, and scaling up to well-tested interventions in multiple contexts. We conclude by talking about ways to better integrate learning sciences and computing education research. Computing education should be part of education research, especially as computers become more ubiquitous, but also more integration with learning sciences expands our reach in computing education research.